Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we are going on a journey. We're diving into the story behind Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Ah, the Ninth.
You got it.
Yeah.
But we're not just talking about the music, although we will do plenty of that, don't you worry.
Right.
What we're really fascinated by here is how Beethoven's deafness, how his hearing loss, shaped his music.
Yeah, and what's so amazing to me, so captivating, he was almost completely deaf when he wrote it, the Ninth. I mean, think about that. The symphony that gave us Ode to Joy, How is that even possible?
It's mind-blowing when you think about it, to create something so powerful, so emotionally resonant, without being able to, hear.
Right.
It's a question that's puzzled people for centuries.
For sure. It's like a paradox, almost. You can't help but wonder, how did he do it? What was going on inside his head?
I think to really understand the Ninth, we've got to start with Beethoven the man.
Absolutely. We've got to go beyond the music, delve into the life.
Right, because the sources we've got here, they paint this really vivid picture of him. And they don't shy away from the tough stuff either.
Oh, yeah. He was a complex guy, that's for sure.
So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Beethoven was born in Bonn, Germany.
Yeah.
And his father, he was, how do I put this delicately? Intense.
Yeah. Demanding is a good word.
Demanding, yeah. Pushed him hard, wanted him to be a child prodigy, like Mozart.
Oh, I can't even imagine that kind of pressure as a kid. Must have been tough.
Can you imagine? I mean, it's no wonder Beethoven had a bit of a rebellious streak,
It did.
Yeah.
But, that rebellious energy combined with his crazy talent, it propelled him. He ended up in Vienna by the time he was 21.
Vienna, the musical heart of Europe at the time. What was that like?
Oh, man. Vienna was the place to be for a musician. I mean, think about it. It was buzzing, competitive, full of these insanely talented people, all vying for the attention of these wealthy patrons.
Because back then, patronage, that was everything for an artist, right?
Oh, totally. If you didn't have a patron, you were kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
But Beethoven, he was different. He had this raw talent, this incredible technical skill.
Sure, he had the technique, but there was something else too, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
His music, it had this emotional depth, this intensity that just set him apart from everyone else.
So here he is in Vienna, young Beethoven, right at the start of his career. Things are looking good, and then
Boom. Late 20s, he starts to lose his hearing.
I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like. For a musician, I mean, your hearing is everything.
It's devastating, right?
Yeah.
To be at the top of your game, your career taking off, and suddenly silence starts to creep in.
He couldn't even bring himself to tell people.
It was too much.
There's a letter he wrote to his friend, Franz Wegler. He says, "It is impossible for me to say to people, I am deaf." I mean, you can just feel the anguish in those words, can't you?
Absolutely. Just heartbreaking. And then there's the Heiligenstadt Testament. Have you read that?
Yeah, it's intense.
It is. 1802, he writes this letter almost like a will.
Yeah, it was a dark time for him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pouring out his soul in this letter, talking about his despair, his struggle with this, encroaching deafness. He even considered suicide.
That's how desperate he felt. But
Yeah.
And this is what's amazing to me. He comes back from that.
He does. It's incredible.
It's like this dark period, this crucible. It somehow fuels his creativity.
Yeah.
And that's where the heroic period begins.
Exactly. 1803 to 1812. This is where things get really interesting, musically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
His music, it takes on this whole new boldness, this grandeur, almost like he's defying fate.
And one of the most striking examples of this shift is Symphony No. 3, the Eroica.
Oh, the Eroica. Now we're talking.
Tell me about it. What makes it so heroic?
Well, first of all, it just blows the classical symphony out of the water. I mean,
Yeah.
It's bigger, bolder, more dramatic.
And there's that whole thing with Napoleon, right?
Right. Initially, he dedicated it to Napoleon, saw him as this champion of the Enlightenment, liberty, equality, all that. But then Napoleon goes and crowns himself emperor.
That did not sit well with Beethoven.
Not at all. He saw it as betrayal. So he rededicated the symphony to the memory of a great man. Like, okay, Napoleon, you're dead to me.
It's fascinating how personal and political events, they're all intertwined with his music.
Totally. It's not just about the notes on the page. It's about expressing something deeper, something about the human condition, the struggle for freedom.
And that's what makes his music so timeless, so relevant even today.
Absolutely. It speaks to something universal within us. It's not just beautiful. It makes you think. It makes you feel.
And that innovative, almost defiant spirit, it runs through a lot of his works from this period, like the Waldstein Sonata.
Oh, yeah, the Waldstein. That's a beast of a piece. I mean, technically speaking, it's just mind-blowing.
It pushes the piano to its limits.
It does. Extended arpeggios, rapid octave runs, dynamic range like you've never heard before. It's like he's saying, look what I can do, even with this darkness closing in on me.
It's incredible. And then there's Fidelio, his only opera.
Ah, Fidelio, a story of love, justice, and defying tyranny.
The main character, Leonore, she disguises herself as a man to rescue her husband, who's been wrongly imprisoned.
Right. And you can't help but see those themes, freedom, justice. They're so resonant with what Beethoven was going through himself.
Fighting his own inner demons, you could say. So we've got this image of Beethoven in his heroic period, battling his deafness, pouring his struggle into this incredible, defiant music. But how, practically speaking, how did he actually compose as his hearing got worse?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, this is the early 1800s. We're talking long before modern hearing aids.
Well, how did he do it? Spill the beans.
He had to get creative, that's for sure.
Right, I'm all ears.
All right, so first of all, he used these things called conversation books. People would write down what they wanted to say to him, and he'd either write back or answer verbally.
Those books are amazing. I mean, they give you such a personal glimpse into his life, his thoughts.
They really do. But he didn't stop there. He experimented with all sorts of hearing devices. Ear trumpets to amplify sound, things attached to his piano to transmit vibrations through his jawbone.
Talk about resourceful. But what really blows my mind is this thing called inner hearing.
Ah, yes. This is where his genius really shines through.
Explain it to me. I mean, how do you compose music without actually being able to hear it?
He developed this ability to compose entirely in his mind. Like, he could hear the music without physically hearing it. Imagine that. Writing symphonies in your head.
That is next level.
It is. And there's this quote from him. He says, I hear and see the image in front of me from every angle. Right. It's like he wasn't just hearing the music. He was seeing it, experiencing it in this multi-sensory way. And this is the guy who goes on to compose the Ninth Symphony. Yeah. Considered by many to be his masterpiece.
It's incredible. Before we move on to the ninth, though, I think we need to just pause for a moment and appreciate the sheer willpower, the creative force that allowed him to keep composing in the face of such adversity.
It's truly inspiring, isn't it? I mean, it speaks volumes about the resilience of the human spirit, the power of passion, the unwavering pursuit of one's art, even when the odds are stacked against you.
It's a story that resonates with all of us, I think. Reminds us that even when things get tough, we have the capacity to adapt, to innovate, to find ways to express ourselves and connect with the world.
Absolutely. And with that in mind, are you ready to tackle the ninth? To see how all these experiences, these innovations, they culminate in this monumental work?
I'm more than ready. Let's do it, the Ninth Symphony. I mean, it's iconic, right? It's more than just a piece of music. It's like woven into our culture. But for me, knowing the story behind it, knowing what Beethoven went through to create it, it just adds this whole other level of, I don't know, depth and meaning.
It's true. It's not just a bunch of pretty tunes strung together.
Right.
It's a testament to his genius, his resilience, his belief in music's power, like to unite people, to lift them up.
It really is. People say it's like the culmination of his entire musical journey.
Yeah.
What do you think makes it such a landmark achievement?
Well, I mean, for one thing, it's totally unique. He broke all the rules. Like, incorporating vocal soloists and a full chorus in the final movement.
Yeah, I mean, that's unheard of at the time, right, for a symphony?
Totally radical. I mean, imagine the audience's reaction. To bring voices into a genre that was, purely instrumental. It was a bold move.
It really was. And it kind of cemented the Ninth's place as this groundbreaking work.
Exactly. And he didn't just add voices for the sake of it. He used them to amplify this message of unity and brotherhood. He drew on the words of Schiller's poem, Ode to Joy.
Ah, Ode to Joy. That melody, it's like a universal anthem now, right? Hope, celebration, all that.
It is. It's powerful.
But to me, the Ninth is more than just that final movement, It's like a journey through all these emotions. It's a roller coaster ride. Walk us through it, will you? Like movement by movement. I'm curious, how does each one build on the one before it?
Okay, so the first movement, it's like this whirlwind of emotions. It starts with this dramatic, almost primordial theme, full of tension, struggle.
So it's starting with a fight, a battle.
You could say that. And, it's hard not to hear those echoes of his own struggles, the deafness, the determination to overcome it. It's all there in the music.
Yeah, I can see that. First movement, struggle. What's next?
Second movement, it's a scherzo. So, fast, lively, playful. But Beethoven being Beethoven, it becomes something much more intense.
Ha.
Well, there are all these rhythmic surprises, these jarring shifts in dynamics. It's a real, tour de force of orchestral writing, almost manic at times.
So we go from struggle to this kind of like frenetic energy.
Exactly. And then we get to the third movement.
Okay, tell me about the third movement.
The third movement is an adagio. So it's this moment of respite, of reflection. The melodies are long, lyrical, almost ethereal. It's like after the storm of the first two movements, we've reached this place of calm contemplation.
Yeah, it's like even amidst all the chaos, there are these moments of peace. Makes me think of how Beethoven would escape to nature, find solace and inspiration.
I love that connection.
Yeah.
And then after this moment of tranquility, we get the fourth movement, the big one.
The one with the voices.
Yes. But it doesn't start with the ode to joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It begins with this sense of chaos, like a rejection of everything that came before.
So it's like he's saying, hold on, we're not there yet. We've still got work to do.
Exactly. And then out of this chaos emerges the ode to joy theme. The cellos and basses, they start it. It's a simple melody, really.
Yeah.
But it's got this incredible power. It just grabs you.
And then it just builds and builds, doesn't it? This massive, joyous celebration.
It does. It goes through all these variations, growing in intensity and complexity. And then the soloists enter. The chorus joins in. It all culminates in this glorious outpouring of emotion.
It's powerful enough just listening to a recording. But can you imagine being there at the premiere, knowing that Beethoven himself was conducting, even though we couldn't hear any of it?
Oh, man, that premiere, May 7th, 1824, Vienna. It must have been something else. Imagine it. The orchestra and chorus are playing, the soloists are singing their hearts out, and Beethoven, he's standing on the podium, completely deaf, guiding them through this masterpiece. It must have been so emotional.
Incredibly emotional for everyone involved, I imagine, for Beethoven, for the musicians, for the audience.
It was. And there's this famous story, right? At the end of the performance, Beethoven, he's so lost in his own world, he just keeps conducting, even after the music stops.
Really?
Yeah, one of the soloists actually had to turn him around so he could see the audience. They were going wild, giving him this thunderous applause.
Wow. Just wow. I mean, that image, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it? His dedication, his passion, his ability to connect with people on this deeper level beyond his physical limitations.
It really does. And it's what makes the Ninth Symphony so enduring, so powerful. It's a story of triumph over adversity. The human spirit's ability to create beauty and meaning, even when facing the most difficult challenges.
And the Ode to Joy melody, it's become the symbol of hope, unity for people all over the world.
It has. And it's all thanks to Beethoven. But, the Ninth Symphony wasn't the end of his creative journey. He kept composing, even as his deafness got worse.
That's right. The late string quartets, especially string quartet number 14, that one's really intriguing to me. What makes these works so special?
Well, the lead string quartets, they're often considered the pinnacle of his chamber music. They're incredibly complex, introspective, really personal.
So we're shifting gears here, going from the grand orchestral scale of the Ninth Symphony to the more intimate world of the string quartet.
We are. It's like a shift in focus. From, the outward expression of emotions to a more inward exploration. The string quartets, they're full of dissonance, these unexpected harmonic twists and turns. And the melodies, they're long, searching, like he's grappling with these really profound questions about life and death, the meaning of existence.
Our notes mention string quartet number 14 in C-sharp minor specifically. What's so special about this one?
Well, first of all, it's got 7 movements, all connected, and they're played without a pause.
Wow, 7 movements. That's unusual.
It is. It's like this continuous stream of consciousness. We're right there inside Beethoven's mind, experiencing his thoughts and feelings as they ebb and flow.
It sounds like an incredible listening experience.
It is. And, the story goes that Schubert, after hearing this quartet, he said, after this, what is left for us to write?
Really? Wow.
Right. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Beethoven, even in his late period, he was pushing the boundaries, inspiring awe, and maybe even a little bit of fear in his fellow composers.
And there's the Missa Solemnis, too. That's a whole different kind of work, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally different. The Missa Solemnis is a mass setting. It's huge, grand, and incredibly deep, spiritually speaking. It really shows how his relationship with faith evolved, how he was searching for meaning in a world that often felt, chaotic and unfair.
So we've got the intimacy of the string quartets, the grand spirituality of the Missa Solemnis. These late works, they seem to reveal a different side of Beethoven, don't they? A more philosophical side.
They do. And they challenge us to listen differently, to go beyond the surface beauty and really dive into the depths of his mind. It's like in his later years, he wasn't satisfied with just expressing emotions. He wanted to wrestle with the big questions, explore the human condition, connect with something bigger than himself.
He even wrote, "From the heart may it return to the heart" on the Missa Solemnis manuscript.
He did. And that tells you everything, doesn't it?
Right.
He wasn't just writing music for the sake of it. He was pouring his heart and soul into it, hoping to create something that would resonate with others, something that would touch their hearts and minds.
It's incredible, isn't it? As his physical world was shrinking because of the deafness, his musical world just kept expanding, becoming more profound, more philosophical. It makes you wonder what was going through his mind, what he was feeling as he composed these incredibly personal, profound works.
It does. It's a question that's fascinated people for centuries. But luckily, we have some clues, right? His letters, his writings, they give us these little glimpses into his worldview, his thoughts on art, politics, the human condition.
So he wasn't just a musical genius, he was also a deep thinker, engaged with the world around him.
Oh, absolutely. The Enlightenment ideals, they had a huge influence on him. Liberty, equality, fraternity. He believed in reason, individual freedom, the potential for human progress.
And these beliefs, they found their way into his music, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
His music isn't just about pretty melodies. It's about expressing something deeper, something about the human spirit.
The struggle for freedom, the search for meaning.
Exactly. And it's almost like he was using music to communicate with the world.
Yeah, to share his thoughts, his feelings, his hopes, his fears with an audience that might not otherwise have been able to hear him.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And it makes me think of that quote of his. He said, "Music is the mediator between the spiritual and the sensual life." He saw it as this force that could connect us to something larger than ourselves, something transcendent.
That's powerful. It reminds us that music, art, any form of creative expression, it can be so healing, so connecting. It can help us find meaning in a world that can often feel pretty chaotic.
Absolutely. And Beethoven's music especially, it just has this way of touching us, deep down.
Yeah.
It transcends language, cultural barriers. It speaks to something universal within us.
And that universality, that ability to connect with people across time and space, that's what makes his legacy so powerful. He wasn't just a composer, he was a visionary.
He was. He saw the power of music to unite, to inspire, to uplift. He believed that music could make the world a better place. And his works, they continue to embody that belief.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Beethoven's life and music, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway? What do you hope our listener will remember long after this is over?
For me, it's the power of the human spirit. To overcome, to create beauty, even when facing the toughest challenges. Beethoven's story shows us that power. And I hope it inspires all of us to tap into our own inner strength, to embrace our creativity, and to never, ever give up on our dreams, no matter how hard things get.
I love that. It's been a real pleasure exploring Beethoven's world with you today. Thank you for sharing your insights and expertise.
It's been a joy. He's a composer who continues to inspire and challenge us even after all these years.
And to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. We encourage you to explore his music further, to listen with fresh ears, and to discover the power of his music to move you, to inspire you, to connect us all on a deeper human level.
And maybe as you listen, you'll be inspired to find your own ode to joy, your own way to create beauty and meaning in the face of whatever challenges life throws your way.
That's a big question, right? Why should we care about Beethoven today? I mean, what's his relevance? What can we learn from him, from his music, that we can apply to our own lives?
It's easy to think of him as this untouchable genius, right? This larger-than-life figure who overcame these incredible obstacles, and he was. But there's also something so human, so relatable about his story.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's not just about the symphonies, the sonatas. It's about the struggle, the perseverance, this will to create something beautiful, something meaningful, even when facing, well, really tough stuff.
Exactly. He reminds us that, we all have our struggles, our own inner demons to wrestle with. Maybe not deafness, maybe not the pressure of composing a masterpiece, but we all face challenges, things that test us, make us question ourselves, threaten to silence our own, inner voices.
And Beethoven shows us that it's possible to come through those challenges, to turn our struggles into something, well, creative, something positive, something that connects us with others, gives our lives meaning.
He didn't let his deafness define him. He found a way to adapt, to innovate. He turned his limitations into opportunities, for growth, for creative expression.
Think about it. He didn't have noise-canceling headphones or, digital hearing aids. He had to rely on his own inner strength, his resilience. It makes you wonder, what are we capable of if we brought that same level of commitment to our own goals, our own aspirations?
That's a good question. And it's an important one. Beethoven's story, it reminds us that we often underestimate our own potential. We have the capacity to overcome obstacles, to be creative, to achieve things that maybe at first seem impossible.
So it's not about comparing ourselves to Beethoven, trying to be like him. It's more about recognizing that we all have that inner Beethoven,
Sure.
that capacity for resilience, for creativity, for determination.
Exactly. And it's about tapping into that inner strength when we face challenges. Remembering that even when things are tough, there's that spark of creativity, that glimmer of hope that can help us through. Just like Beethoven found a way to compose, even in silence, we can find ways to express ourselves, to connect with others, to make our voices heard.
It's a powerful reminder that music, art, creativity in all its forms, it can be such a powerful force, for healing, for connection, for finding meaning in a world that can often feel, well, chaotic.
It's true. And Beethoven's music especially, it has this ability to touch us deeply. It transcends language, cultures. It speaks to something universal within us.
And that universality, that ability to connect with people across time and space, that's what makes his legacy so enduring, so powerful. He wasn't just a composer, he was a visionary.
He was. He believed in the power of music to bring people together, to inspire, to uplift. He believed music could make the world a better place. And his music, it continues to do just that.
It's been an incredible journey exploring Beethoven's world with you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine. He's a composer who never ceases to amaze and inspire, even centuries later.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. We encourage you to explore his music, to listen with fresh ears, and to discover the power of his music to move you, to inspire you, to connect us all on this deeper human level. And maybe, just maybe, as you listen, you'll be inspired to find your own ode to joy, your own way to create beauty and meaning no matter what challenges you face. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.